I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. I want to know how far my story of justice has reached. I still remember that fateful morning in late October when everything changed. The sunlight streamed through my kitchen window as I sat at my small wooden table, clutching my phone and listening to the endless ringing. No answer. Again. My name is Linda Brown. I'm 61 years old and live alone in a small town just outside Chicago. My story begins with 2 weeks of silence that turned my world upside down. I dialed my son's number for what felt like the 100th time that week. The phone rang and rang until James's cheerful voicemail message played in my ear. "Hey, this is James. Leave a message and I'll call you back as soon as I can." But he hadn't called back. Not for 2 weeks. "James, it's Mom again," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "Please call me. I'm worried sick about you and Noah. Just let me know you're okay." I ended the call and set the phone down, watching it as if it might suddenly spring to life. The knot in my stomach tightened. This wasn't like James. My son always called me at least once a week, telling me about his work, about my 8-year-old grandson Noah, about the ordinary days of a father and his son. I tried to calm myself, to find reasonable explanations. Maybe James was swamped with work. Perhaps his phone was broken. Maybe they'd gone on an impromptu vacation. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. By the 5th day of silence, anxiety had begun to eat me alive. I tried calling his landline, hoping to hear Noah's excited voice telling me about school or his latest Lego creation. But just like James's cell phone, the home phone rang endlessly in an empty house. I sent messages to Noah's tablet. "Sweetheart, where are you? Call Grandma." The message showed as delivered, but the read receipt never appeared. Noah always responded to my messages. Always. He was young, but he knew how to use his tablet, and he loved his grandma very much. The fact that he hadn't replied sent ice through my veins. I started calling James's friends and coworkers. Their responses only deepened my concern. "I haven't seen James all week," his coworker told me, surprise evident in his voice. "I thought he was on vacation." "The last time we talked was last month," his close friend said. "James mentioned he was swamped with work, but nothing seemed off." No one had answers. The more I asked, the more I felt like I was drowning in a void of uncertainty. On the 10th day, desperation led me to call the neighbors who lived near James's house in Chicago. Most didn't pick up or couldn't help. But finally, an elderly woman who lived across the street answered. "Mrs. Wilson," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Have you seen any activity at James's house recently?" There was a pause. Then she sighed. "Now that you mention it, Mrs. Brown, it's been awfully quiet over there. But last week, on the night of that terrible storm, I saw a light suddenly come on in the house and then go off. I thought maybe the boy just turned on a light to go to the bathroom or something." Her voice trembled slightly, as if she too felt something was amiss. Should I be worried? The night of the storm. A light turning on and then off. The information stabbed my heart like a knife. 2 weeks of silence had stretched my nerves to breaking point. I couldn't sleep. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, imagining terrible scenarios. Had James been in an accident? Was he ill? Had something happened to Noah? I knew one thing for certain. James would never willingly disappear without Noah. His son was his whole world. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to go to Chicago. The next morning, I packed a small overnight bag and caught the first bus to Chicago. During the 3-hour ride, I sat in silence, my eyes fixed on the window but seeing nothing of the passing landscape. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched my ticket, and my heart felt tied in a painful knot. I tried to calm myself, to prepare for whatever I might find. But how does one prepare for the unknown? My mind wandered to the last time I'd spoken with James. It had been a normal Sunday afternoon call. He'd sounded tired, but had laughed when Noah shouted greetings in the background. "Mom, we're fine," he'd said. "Work's been a bit heavy lately, that's all." I hadn't pushed further. Now I blamed myself for not asking more questions, for not hearing what might have been hidden beneath his casual tone. As the bus approached Chicago, rain began to fall. Light at first, then heavier. drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. By the time I arrived at the main terminal, the sky had darkened, matching my mood. I walked quickly through the streets toward the gated community where James lived. It was an upscale neighborhood with manicured lawns and elegant homes, a testament to my son's success as a financial analyst. The security guard at the entrance recognized me from previous visits and waved me through with a friendly smile. "Going to see your grandson, Mrs. Brown?" he asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. If only this were just another ordinary visit. The rain had eased to a drizzle as I walked down the familiar tree-lined street to James's house. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if my body resisted what my mind was compelling it to do. I'd walked this path dozens of times before, always with anticipation and joy at seeing my son and grandson. But today, each step brought me closer to a door I was suddenly afraid to open. Standing before the familiar white door with its brass knocker, I took a deep breath. The house looked undisturbed from the outside. The lawn was slightly overgrown, unusual for James, who was meticulous about maintenance, but otherwise, nothing seemed amiss. I knocked gently at first, then with increasing force. "James Noah," I called, my voice breaking in the damp air. No answer came. I tried the doorknob, not expecting it to turn. James was always careful about locking up, especially with Noah in the house. To my shock, the door opened with a slight creak. My heart began to race. James would never leave the door unlocked. Never. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, holding my breath as if the slightest noise might shatter everything into a million pieces. The foyer was dark and silent. I reached for the light switch with trembling fingers and blinked as the entryway illuminated. Everything looked normal here. Shoes neatly arranged on the rack. Noah's backpack hanging on its designated hook. "James," I called again, louder this time. "Noah, sweetheart, are you here?" Only silence answered me. I moved toward the living room, and what I saw there stopped me cold. The room was in disarray, so unlike my son's usually immaculate home. The leather sofa had been shoved out of place, as if someone had pushed against it violently. A coffee mug lay shattered on the hardwood floor, its contents dried to a dark stain. Books had fallen from shelves, and a small side table was overturned. My heart pounded against my ribs as I carefully stepped over the broken porcelain, trying not to disturb what was clearly a scene of struggle. In the kitchen, the disorder continued. The water cooler had been tipped on its side, its contents long since drained across the tile floor. Several empty water bottles lay scattered about, their caps missing as if someone had frantically gulped their contents. The smell of dampness and silence filled the house, sending chills down my spine. I moved to the stairs, each step creaking under my weight. Going up felt like climbing a mountain, my legs suddenly leaden. "James," I called again, my voice now hoarse with fear. "Noah." I checked James's home office first. His computer sat untouched on the desk, a fine layer of dust already settling on the keyboard. Papers were still neatly arranged in their folders. Whatever had happened hadn't disturbed this room. His bedroom was similarly undisturbed. The bed was made, the closet door closed. It looked as if James had simply left for work and never returned. Finally, I reached Noah's room at the end of the hallway. The door was ajar, and I pushed it open slowly. "Noah, sweetie, are you here?" I whispered, almost afraid of an answer. Noah's room was just as I remembered it, walls painted blue with space-themed decals, shelves lined with books and toys. His bed was neatly made, his favorite teddy bear propped against the pillows. Lego blocks were scattered on his play table in the corner, a half-finished spaceship abandoned mid-construction. I stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by the remnants of my grandson's life, and felt a crushing wave of despair. Where were they? What had happened in this house then? I heard it. A small noise from under the bed. A scraping sound, like plastic moving against wood. I froze, a chill running down my spine. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. There was something under the bed. I wanted to bend down and look, but my feet felt glued to the floor. I took a step back, grabbing the edge of Noah's desk to steady myself. "Noah!" I called again, my voice barely audible. The tiny sound came again, clearer this time, a plastic bottle rolling on hardwood. Twist one, something was moving beneath Noah's bed. Panic seized me. I backed out of the room, stumbling slightly in my haste. I ran down the stairs, nearly falling in my rush to get out, to get help. On the front porch, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. I had to dial the emergency number 3 times before my trembling fingers got it right. 911, what's your emergency? A calm voice answered. My son is missing, I gasped, my words tumbling out in a rush. I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks. His house is a mess, like there was a fight, and there's something under my grandson's bed. My voice broke on the last words. Ma'am, please give me your address, the operator requested. I recited James's address, my voice shaking. Officers are on their way, she assured me. Please wait outside for them to arrive. I paced the front lawn, hugging myself against the evening chill. Every few seconds, I glanced up at Noah's bedroom window, half expecting to see a face watching me, but the window remained dark and empty. Within minutes, the red and blue lights of a patrol car illuminated the quiet street. 2 officers emerged, one young and tall, the other older with a weathered face. Mrs. Brown, the older officer approached. I'm Officer Roberts, and this is Officer Davis. You reported a missing person and a possible intruder. I nodded, struggling to keep my voice steady as I explained the situation. My son James and my grandson Noah, I haven't heard from them in 2 weeks. The house is a mess inside, and I heard something moving under Noah's bed. The officers exchanged glances. Let's take a look, Officer Roberts said gently. Stay behind us, ma'am. We entered the house, the officers switching on their flashlights despite the overhead lights. They noted the disarray in the living room, taking pictures with their phones and speaking in low tones. Which way to the child's room? Officer Davis asked. I led them upstairs, each step feeling like lead. At Noah's doorway, I pointed with a shaky finger. Under the bed, I whispered. I heard something moving. Officer Davis approached the bed cautiously while Officer Roberts stood by the door, hand resting on his holster. The younger officer knelt down and directed his flashlight beneath the bed frame. Is anyone under there? He called firmly. A heavy silence filled the room. Then, without another word, both officers gripped the sides of the bed and lifted it in one swift motion, moving it aside to reveal what lay beneath. My heart stopped. Climax 1 there, curled in a tight ball on the floor, was Noah. My grandson was barely recognizable. His small body was painfully thin, his clothes filthy and damp with sweat. His hair was matted against his skull, and his face was pale and drawn. In his hand, he clutched an empty plastic water bottle with a death grip, his knuckles white with the effort. But what struck me most were his eyes, wide open but vacant, staring at nothing, as if he were looking into another world I couldn't see. Noah, I cried, falling to my knees beside him. I wanted to gather him into my arms, but my hands were shaking so badly I was afraid I might hurt him. Noah, it's Grandma. Can you hear me? He didn't respond. He didn't even blink. He just clutched that empty bottle tighter, his breathing shallow and rapid. Officer Roberts was already on his radio, calling for an ambulance. We need medical assistance immediately. We have a child, approximately 8 years old, severe dehydration, possible malnutrition, unresponsive but conscious. Officer Davis knelt beside me. Ma'am, try not to touch him too much. He's in shock. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Noah, sweetie, help is coming. Grandma's here now. You're safe. Still no response. He remained curled on his side, eyes fixed on nothing. The minutes until the ambulance arrived felt like hours. I sat on the floor near Noah, speaking softly, telling him everything would be okay, though I had no idea if that was true. Where was James? What had happened to my son, and how had Noah ended up hidden under his bed in this condition when the paramedics rushed in? They gently moved me aside to examine Noah. Their faces were professionally neutral, but I could see the concern in their eyes as they checked his vital signs. Severe dehydration, one murmured to his colleague. Possible malnutrition. No obvious external injuries. They placed Noah on a stretcher, and as they lifted him, the empty water bottle finally fell from his grasp. His hand remained curled as if still holding it, and a small whimper escaped his lips, the first sound I'd heard him make. "I'm coming with him," I told the paramedics. Not a question, but a statement. In the ambulance, I sat beside Noah's stretcher, watching the paramedics attach IV fluids to his thin arm. His eyes remained open, but he showed no recognition of me or his surroundings. "Noah," I whispered, leaning close. "It's Grandma. I'm here, sweetie. I'm not going anywhere." For just a moment, his eyes flickered toward my voice, and I thought I saw a flicker of awareness. Then it was gone, and he was staring at the ceiling of the ambulance again. "What happened to you?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. "Where's your daddy?" The hospital emergency room was a blur of activity. Noah was immediately taken for assessment, and I was left in a waiting area, clutching my purse with white knuckles, after what seemed like an eternity. A doctor approached, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Mrs. Brown, I'm Dr. Rivera. Your grandson is being treated for severe dehydration and malnutrition. We're running tests, but he appears to have no serious physical injuries. Is he going to be okay?" I asked, my voice small. Dr. Rivera's expression was grave. "Physically, with proper care. He should recover. But I'm concerned about his psychological state. He's exhibiting signs of severe trauma. He hasn't spoken or responded to questions. Has Noah experienced any recent trauma that you know of?" I shook my head helplessly. "I don't know what happened. My son, Noah's father, I haven't heard from him in 2 weeks. I found Noah like this, under his bed." The doctor's eyebrows rose slightly. "Under his bed for how long?" "I don't know," I admitted, tears threatening again. "Perhaps the entire 2 weeks. Is that possible?" Dr. Rivera considered this. "It's unusual, but in a state of extreme fear or trauma, especially in children, hiding behavior can persist. If he had access to some water, even limited, it's possible. We'll need to speak with child psychologists, and of course the police will need to investigate." As if summoned by her words, Officers Roberts and Davis appeared in the waiting room. Their expressions were solemn. "Mrs. Brown," Officer Roberts began gently, "we need to ask you some questions about your son and grandson." I nodded, wiping away tears. "Can I see Noah first?" "He's being settled in a room," Dr. Rivera said. "You can see him in about 20 minutes. I'll have a nurse come get you." I turned back to the officers. "What do you need to know?" They led me to a quiet corner of the waiting room. Officer Davis took out a notepad. "When was the last time you spoke with your son?" he asked. 2 weeks ago, Sunday. It was our regular weekly call. He seemed tired, but otherwise normal." "And did he mention any problems, anyone who might wish him harm?" I shook my head. "No, nothing like that. James was always a quiet man. He's a financial analyst, keeps to himself mostly since his divorce." "Tell us about the divorce," Officer Roberts prompted. I took a deep breath. James was married to Amanda for 10 years. They divorced 3 years ago. It was difficult. Amanda had developed a gambling problem. She'd run up huge debts. James tried to help her, even sold his car to pay off her creditors. But it wasn't enough. She became volatile, often yelling at Noah for small things. James finally divorced her and got full custody of Noah. "Do you have any contact information for Amanda?" Officer Davis asked, jotting notes. I shook my head. "Not anymore. She moved away after the divorce. I think she's still in Chicago somewhere. But James didn't stay in touch with her." They asked more questions about James's job, his friends, his routines. I answered as best I could, but my mind kept returning to Noah, alone and terrified under that bed for possibly 2 weeks. Finally, a nurse approached. "Mrs. Brown, you can see your grandson now." I thanked the officers, who promised to continue their investigation and keep me informed. Then I followed the nurse to Noah's room. Noah lay in a hospital bed that seemed too large for his small frame. An IV was attached to his arm, and monitors beeped softly beside him. He was clean now, his hair washed and combed, dressed in a hospital gown, but his eyes still held that vacant stare, fixed on the ceiling. I sat beside his bed and gently took his hand. It was cold and limp in mine. "Noah, it's Grandma," I said softly. "You're safe now, sweetheart. I'm here with you." No response, not even a flicker of recognition. A nurse entered quietly to check his vitals. "Try talking to him," she suggested kindly. "Even if he doesn't respond, he might be listening." After she left, I began to speak, my voice low and steady. I told Noah about my garden back home, about the cardinals that had built a nest in my maple tree, about the books I'd been saving to read with him. I talked until my voice grew hoarse, watching for any sign that he heard me. As night fell, the hospital grew quieter. Noah had fallen into a fitful sleep, occasionally twitching and whimpering. I stroked his hair gently when this happened, whispering reassurances. A soft knock at the door roused me from my thoughts. Officer Roberts stood there, his expression grave. "Mrs. Brown, could I speak with you outside for a moment?" My heart sank. Something in his tone told me the news wasn't good. In the hallway, he spoke in a low voice. "We've processed the scene at your son's house. I'm afraid we found a significant amount of blood in the living room, near where the coffee table was overturned." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I reached for the wall to steady myself. "Blood," I whispered. He nodded grimly. "We've sent samples for DNA testing, but given the circumstances, we're treating this as a possible homicide investigation." "James," I breathed, the name a prayer and a plea. "You think someone killed my son?" "We don't know that for certain yet," he said quickly, "but we need to prepare for that possibility. We'd like to bring in a child psychologist to speak with Noah as soon as he's able. He may be the only witness to whatever happened." I nodded numbly. "Of course. Whatever you need. Try to get some rest, Mrs. Brown," Officer Roberts said gently. "We'll have an officer stationed in the hallway tonight, just as a precaution." "A precaution against what?" I asked, suddenly afraid. He hesitated. "Just standard procedure in cases like this." I returned to Noah's room, my mind reeling. Blood in the living room, a possible homicide. My son, my James, might be. I couldn't complete the thought. I sat beside Noah's bed again, taking his small hand in mine. "Noah," I whispered, tears falling freely now. "What happened to your daddy? What happened to you both?" And then, as if my words had penetrated the fog surrounding him, Noah's eyes shifted to meet mine, his cracked lips parted, and in a voice so faint I had to lean close to hear it, he whispered, "Dad told me to hide. Don't come out until I call for you." A sob escaped me. "Noah, can you hear me, sweetheart?" His eyes filled with tears. "Grandma," he whispered, "Dad is dead." Too, Noah had witnessed something terrible. His words echoed in the quiet room, and then he began to cry, silent, shaking sobs that racked his small body. I carefully gathered him into my arms, mindful of the IV, and held him as he trembled. "It's okay, Noah," I murmured, though nothing was okay. "Grandma's here now. You're safe." Over his shoulder, I pressed the call button. Within moments, a nurse appeared, quickly followed by Dr. Rivera, who had apparently been nearby. "He spoke," I told them, still holding Noah as he cried. "He said his father told him to hide." Dr. Rivera approached slowly, careful not to startle Noah. "Noah, my name is Dr. Rivera. You're in the hospital, and you're safe now. Can you tell us what happened?" Noah clung to me tighter, burying his face in my shoulder. "No," he whimpered. "They'll find me." "Who will find you?" "Noah," I asked gently. But Noah had retreated back into silence, his body rigid with fear. Dr. Rivera signaled to the nurse, who prepared a mild sedative. "This will help him rest," she explained to me. "He's been through severe trauma. Sleep is the best thing for him right now." After Noah had been sedated and lay sleeping peacefully, Dr. Rivera took me aside. "This is a breakthrough," she said. "He's beginning to emerge from his dissociative state, but we need to be very careful. The psychological damage from whatever he witnessed could be profound. I nodded, understanding. The police think his father might have been killed. I heard, she said gently. They've asked for a forensic psychologist to interview Noah tomorrow, if he's able, but his well-being comes first. If he's not ready, it will have to wait. That night, I slept in a recliner beside Noah's bed, waking at his slightest movement. In the dim light from the hallway, I watched his chest rise and fall. This precious child who had survived something unimaginable. My son might be gone. The thought kept returning, a knife to my heart that I couldn't remove. James, my only child, the quiet, serious boy who had grown into a kind and devoted father. And what of Amanda? Where was Noah's mother in all this? Had she been involved somehow? The questions circled in my mind like vultures, giving me no peace. In the early hours of the morning, Noah stirred and opened his eyes. For a moment, he looked confused, then fearful as he took in the unfamiliar room. But when his gaze found me, recognition dawned. "Grandma," he whispered, "you found me." I moved to sit on the edge of his bed, taking his hand. "Yes, sweetheart, I found you. You're safe now." He looked around the room anxiously. "Where's Dad?" My heart broke. How could I answer Noah? "Can you tell me what happened? Why were you hiding under the bed?" His small face crumpled. "Dad told me to. He said don't come out until he calls for me." A tear slid down his cheek. But he never called. I gathered him close, my own tears falling into his hair. "It's okay, Noah. You did exactly what your daddy told you to do. You were very brave." "Is Dad coming?" he asked in a small voice. I couldn't lie to him. "I don't know, sweetheart. The police are looking for him." Noah pulled back slightly, his eyes wide with fear. "They can't let her find me." A chill ran through me. Noah? Who are you afraid of?" He shook his head violently, panic rising in his expression. "I can't say. I can't. Okay, I soothed, pulling him close again. "You don't have to say anything. You're safe here with me." But inside, my mind was racing. Her. Was Noah afraid of a woman his mother had Amanda return to their lives later that morning, when Noah had calmed and eaten a little breakfast? Officer Roberts returned with a woman he introduced as Dr. Patel, a forensic psychologist who specialized in interviewing traumatized children. "Noah has mentioned being afraid of a woman," I told them quietly outside his room. He said, "They can't let her find me." Officer Roberts nodded, making a note. "That's helpful information. Did he mention who she might be?" I shook my head. He became too upset when I asked. Dr. Patel spoke gently. "That's not unusual in cases of trauma. May I try speaking with him? I promise to stop immediately if he becomes distressed." I agreed, and we entered Noah's room together. Noah was sitting up in bed, listlessly pushing cereal around in a bowl. He looked up warily as we entered. "Noah," I said, sitting beside him. "This is Dr. Patel. She'd like to talk with you a little bit. Is that okay?" He looked at Dr. Patel with suspicion. "Are you a doctor like Dr. Rivera?" Dr. Patel smiled warmly. "I'm a different kind of doctor. I help children talk about scary things that have happened to them. But you don't have to talk to me if you don't want to." Noah considered this, then gave a tiny nod. Dr. Patel sat in the chair by his bed, while Officer Roberts remained standing near the door, trying to look non-threatening. "Noah," Dr. Patel began gently, "can you tell me about the night your grandma found you under the bed?" Noah's hands twisted in the bedsheet. "I was hiding," he whispered. "You were hiding," Dr. Patel repeated. "Can you tell me why you were hiding?" "Dad told me to," Noah said, his voice stronger now. "It was raining really hard. I was playing with my Legos in my room, building a tall tower that Dad said was the prettiest." A ghost of a smile touched his lips at the memory, then faded. "And then the doorbell rang many times." He paused, clutching the sheet tighter. Dr. Patel waited patiently. "I got curious and went to see," Noah continued. "Dad was at the door, looking through the peephole, and his face was," he struggled for the word, "scared. I'd never seen him like that. Twist 3, Amanda had returned to their lives. My heart began to pound as Noah continued his story. Dad turned around and saw me standing there. He ran to me, knelt down, and whispered, "Noah, get under the bed quickly. Don't come out until I call for you. You hear me?" I was scared, but Dad pushed me toward my room in a hurry. I got under the bed, and Dad even pulled down the comforter to cover it so no one could see me. Noah took a shaky breath. Through a little gap in the comforter, I saw Mom come in with a very tall man. That man's face was very cold. He didn't say anything. He was just standing there with his arms crossed behind Mom. I gasped softly. Amanda, James's ex-wife, had returned, bringing trouble with her. Dr. Patel kept her expression neutral. What happened next? Noah? Mom looked all around the room and asked, "Where is Noah?" I got so scared. I thought she was going to find me, but Dad told her in a calm voice. He went to his grandma's when the winter break started. I knew Dad was lying, but I didn't dare move. Tears began to roll down Noah's cheeks. Then Mom started yelling at him. She was asking Dad for money. She said something about a debt that Dad had to pay if he didn't want trouble. But Dad shook his head and wouldn't give her any money. He told her she had gone too far, that she had bothered him enough. Noah was trembling now, and I wanted to gather him into my arms, to protect him from these memories. But Dr. Patel caught my eye, silently asking me to wait. "What happened after your dad said that?" she prompted gently. Noah's voice dropped to a whisper. Dad and Mom and the tall man started fighting really bad. Mom was screaming, and the other man got closer, saying something like a threat. I didn't hear it clearly, but I saw him push my dad. Dad stumbled back, and then he pushed him harder. Dad fell and hit his head on the corner of the table. There was a loud thud, and red water started coming out. Noah began to sob in earnest now. I saw Dad lying there not moving. I wanted to come out. I wanted to call him, but I was scared. I was so scared. I couldn't hold back any longer. I gathered Noah into my arms, letting him cry against my shoulder. "It's okay, sweetie. You're safe now. Grandma's here." Officer Roberts had moved closer, his face grave. "Noah," he said gently, "what happened after your dad fell?" Noah clung to me tighter but managed to speak between sobs. Mom and the man were talking really fast. Mom looked scared now, too. She kept saying, "This wasn't supposed to happen." The man told her to shut up. He wrapped Dad in a blanket from the couch. They dragged him out the door. I heard a car start. Then it was quiet. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with fear. I waited for Dad to call me. I waited and waited. I was so thirsty, so I crawled out once to get water from the bathroom. I took lots of bottles back under the bed, but I was so scared they'd come back that I stayed under there. I kept waiting for Dad to call me. My heart shattered for this brave little boy who had followed his father's instructions to the letter, waiting in terror for a call that would never come. Officer Roberts spoke quietly to Dr. Patel, then addressed Noah with gentleness. "Noah, you've been very brave. The information you've given us is going to help us find the people who hurt your dad. Would you recognize the tall man if you saw him again?" Noah nodded hesitantly. "He had a scar here." He pointed to his own cheek. "And his hair was all shaved." "Thank you, Noah," Officer Roberts said. "I'm going to have some officers watch your room, just to make sure you stay safe. Is that okay with you?" Noah nodded again, clutching me tighter. After Officer Roberts and Dr. Patel left, promising to return later, I held Noah as he drifted into an exhausted sleep. My mind was reeling with what we'd learned. Amanda had returned to James's life, bringing violence with her, and now my son was likely dead, and my grandson traumatized beyond measure. I looked down at Noah's sleeping face, peaceful for the first time since I'd found him. I made a silent promise I would protect this child with my life, and I would make sure that Amanda and her accomplice paid for what they had done to our family. As Noah slept, Officer Roberts returned quietly to the room. "Mrs. Brown," he said in a low voice, "based on Noah's testimony, We're issuing an APB for Amanda Brown and her unknown male accomplice. We're treating this as a homicide investigation now." I nodded, my jaw set firmly despite the tears that threatened. "Find them," I whispered. "Find them and bring them to justice." "We will," he promised. "In the meantime, we've stationed an officer outside this room. Noah will be safe." As he turned to leave, I called after him softly, "Officer Roberts, my son, do you think there's any chance?" He met my gaze, and the compassion in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. "We're doing everything we can." Mrs. Brown. Left alone with Noah, I watched the rise and fall of his chest. This precious child who had endured so much, the weight of what lay ahead, the search for James, the hunt for Amanda, the long road of healing for Noah, pressed down on me like a physical burden. But I straightened my shoulders, determination replacing despair. James had protected his son with his final act. Now it was my turn to be strong. For Noah, for James, for justice. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hospital window, casting a warm glow that belied the darkness of our situation. Noah had slept fitfully through the night, occasionally whimpering in his sleep. Each time, I gently stroked his hair and whispered reassurances until he settled again. I sat in the recliner beside his bed, watching his chest rise and fall, thinking of James, my son, who had always been so careful, so protective of Noah. The image of him lying motionless on the floor, blood pooling beneath his head, haunted me. I tried to push it away, but it returned relentlessly, along with the crushing weight of grief I wasn't yet ready to fully acknowledge. Dr. Rivera entered the room quietly, clipboard in hand. She checked Noah's vital signs and nodded with cautious approval. "He's improving physically," she said softly. "The IV fluids have addressed the dehydration, and we're slowly reintroducing proper nutrition. His body is resilient." "And his mind?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Rivera's expression grew more somber. "The psychological trauma is significant. What he witnessed, combined with the isolation and fear of those 2 weeks. It will take time, Mrs. Brown, but children can be remarkably resilient with the right support." Noah stirred then, his eyes fluttering open. For a moment, panic flashed across his face as he took in his surroundings. Then his gaze found me, and relief washed over him. "Grandma," he said, his voice small but clearer than it had been yesterday. "You're still here." I moved to sit on the edge of his bed, taking his hand in mine. "Of course I am, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere." Dr. Rivera approached with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Noah. How are you feeling today?" Noah considered the question seriously. "My tummy doesn't hurt as much, but I'm still scared." "That's understandable," Dr. Rivera said. "Being scared after what you've been through is completely normal, but you're safe here. There's even a police officer right outside your door to make sure of that." Noah's eyes widened slightly. "To keep Mom and the scary man away." "Yes," I assured him. "No one is going to hurt you again." A nurse brought in a breakfast tray, oatmeal with fruit, toast with a small dish of peanut butter, and apple juice. Noah looked at it warily. "Just try a little," I encouraged. "You need to get your strength back." He took a few tentative spoonfuls of oatmeal, then a few more with increasing eagerness. I realized with a pang that he must have been starving during those 2 weeks under the bed, rationing the little water he had, perhaps too terrified to venture out for food more than once or twice. As he ate, Officer Roberts knocked softly on the doorframe. "May I come in?" I nodded, and Noah tensed slightly but continued eating. "Good morning, Noah," Officer Roberts said, keeping his distance so as not to intimidate the boy. "I'm glad to see you're feeling better. Mrs. Brown, could I speak with you in the hallway for a moment?" "I'll be right outside the door," I told Noah. "Dr. Rivera will stay with you. Okay?" Noah nodded, though his eyes followed me anxiously as I stepped into the hallway with Officer Roberts. "We've made some progress," he said in a low voice. "Based on Noah's description and our investigation at the house, we've issued a BOLO, be on the lookout, for Amanda Brown and an unidentified male accomplice. We're also checking security camera footage from the neighborhood on the night of the storm. Have you found— I couldn't bring myself to say it. Officer Roberts understood. No body has been recovered yet, but we're widening our search. The amount of blood at the scene. He paused, choosing his words carefully. It's consistent with a severe head injury. I don't want to give you false hope. Mrs. Brown. I nodded, swallowing hard. I understand. There's something else, he continued. We spoke with James's neighbors again. An elderly woman who lives 2 doors down, Mrs. Wilson, remembered seeing a dark pickup truck parked outside James's house on the night of the storm. She thought it was odd because it wasn't a vehicle she recognized from the neighborhood, but with the weather being so bad, she didn't think much of it at the time. A truck, I repeated. To transport. To take James away. Possibly, Officer Roberts agreed grimly. We're checking traffic cameras in the area to see if we can identify the vehicle. What about Amanda? I asked. Do you have any leads on where she might be? We're looking into her known associates and checking her last known address. We've also frozen James's bank accounts and are monitoring for any unusual activity. He hesitated, then added, There's one more thing you should know. We found a life insurance policy in James's home office, a substantial one. My blood ran cold. And the beneficiary, Amanda Brown, Dwight. The insurance policy revealed a clear motive. I leaned against the wall, my legs suddenly weak. He never changed it after the divorce. Officer Roberts shook his head. It appears not. The policy is for $2 million. Mrs. Brown. That's a significant motive. $2 million. The sum was staggering. James had always been financially prudent, thinking ahead. He'd taken out the policy when Noah was born, wanting to ensure his family would be provided for if anything happened to him. But after the divorce, with everything else going on, he must have forgotten to change the beneficiary. Amanda knew about the policy, I said slowly, memories surfacing. James told me once that she kept the paperwork in her desk. She would have known she was still the beneficiary. That gives her a very clear motive. Officer Roberts agreed. Combined with Noah's testimony about her demanding money and bringing an unknown man to intimidate James, we have a strong case building. I thought of Noah, so small and vulnerable in that hospital bed. What happens to Noah now legally? I mean, for the moment, as his grandmother, you're his closest relative. Child Protective Services has been notified, but given the circumstances, they're recommending he remain in your care while the investigation continues. Once we locate Amanda— She can't have him, I said fiercely. Not after what she's done, Officer Roberts nodded. If she's charged with involvement in your son's, in a homicide, she'll lose all parental rights, but we need to follow due process. I understand, I said, though the thought of Amanda having any claim to Noah made my blood boil. I should get back to him. He gets anxious when I'm not there. As I turned to go back into the room, Officer Roberts added, We'll have an officer here 24/7 until we locate Amanda. Noah's safety is our priority, too. I thanked him and returned to Noah's side. He'd finished most of his breakfast and was looking more alert than I'd seen him since finding him. Is everything okay, Grandma? He asked, his eyes searching my face. I forced a smile. Yes, sweetheart. The police are doing everything they can to find your mom and the man who was with her. Noah's expression darkened. She hurt Dad. I know, honey, I said gently, sitting beside him and taking his hand. Can you tell me more about what happened that night? Only if you feel ready. Noah was quiet for a long moment, his small fingers fidgeting with the edge of his blanket. Finally, he spoke, his voice so soft I had to lean close to hear. Dad and I were having a good day, he began. We made pancakes for breakfast, and then we played video games. Dad let me win at Mario Kart. A ghost of a smile touched his lips at the memory. It started raining really hard in the afternoon. Dad said we might lose power, so he got out the flashlights and candles. Just in case. He paused, his expression growing troubled. Then the doorbell rang. It kept ringing and ringing, like someone was angry. Dad looked through the peephole and got really pale. He told me to go to my room, but I was curious, so I followed him to the door instead. Noah's voice trembled slightly. Dad saw me and looked really scared. That's when he told me to hide under my bed and not come out until he called for me. He pushed me toward my room, and I ran and hid. I was so scared. Grandma, I'd never seen Dad like that before. You were very brave to do what your dad told you, I assured him. Noah continued, his words coming faster now. I heard the front door open, and Mom's voice. She was saying, "Where is he? Where's Noah?" But Dad told her I was at your house. Then Mom started yelling about money. She said she needed it right away, that people were after her. His small face scrunched in concentration. Dad said he'd already given her enough, that he couldn't keep bailing her out. Mom got really mad. The man with her, he was really tall with a shaved head and a scar on his face. He started threatening Dad. He said, "You don't understand who you're dealing with. Rich boy." Noah's breathing quickened. They started pushing each other. Dad pushed the man away, and the man pushed Dad really hard. Dad fell backwards and hit his head on the corner of the coffee table. There was a really loud crack. And then Dad didn't move anymore. There was blood coming out of his head. Tears were streaming down Noah's face now. I wiped them away gently with my thumb. Mom started screaming at the man, saying this wasn't supposed to happen. The man told her to shut up and help him. They wrapped Dad in the blanket from the couch and dragged him out. I heard a car door slam, and then they were gone. Noah looked up at me, his eyes haunted. I stayed under the bed like Dad told me. I thought maybe he'd be okay, that he'd come back and call for me. But he didn't come back. I gathered Noah carefully into my arms, mindful of the IV line, and held him as he sobbed against my shoulder. My own tears fell silently into his hair. "You did exactly what your daddy wanted you to do," I whispered. "You kept yourself safe. James would be so proud of you." Noah. After Noah had cried himself out, he fell into an exhausted sleep. I gently laid him back against the pillows and wiped my own tears away. The story Noah had told painted a clear picture. Amanda had returned, desperate for money, bringing a hired thug to intimidate James. Things had escalated, resulting in James's death, perhaps not premeditated. But they had made the decision to hide his body rather than call for help. And they had left Noah there, not knowing or not caring that he was hiding in the house. The thought of what could have happened to Noah if I hadn't gone to check on them sent a chill through me. How much longer would he have survived under that bed? Would he have eventually ventured out? Only to find himself alone in an empty house. A soft knock at the door pulled me from these dark thoughts. Dr. Patel, the forensic psychologist from yesterday, entered quietly. "How is he?" she asked, nodding toward the sleeping Noah. "He told me more about what happened," I said. "It's confirmed what we suspected. His mother Amanda and some man she brought with her were responsible for James's death." Dr. Patel nodded solemnly. "I've been briefed by Officer Roberts. Noah's testimony will be crucial to building a case against them." "He's been through so much already," I said protectively. "I don't want him to have to relive it again and again." "I understand," Dr. Patel said gently. "We'll do everything we can to minimize his trauma. There are ways to take his statement that are less stressful, recording a single detailed interview, for instance, so he doesn't have to repeat his story multiple times." She sat in the chair opposite me. "Mrs. Brown, I also wanted to talk to you about Noah's ongoing care. Trauma like this doesn't just go away. He'll need therapy, support, stability. Are you prepared for that?" I straightened my shoulders. "He's my grandson. I'll do whatever it takes to help him heal." Dr. Patel smiled warmly. "That's exactly what he needs to hear. We can set you up with resources, referrals to child psychologists who specialize in trauma. It won't be easy, but with your support, Noah has a good chance at recovery." As if sensing we were talking about him, Noah stirred and opened his eyes. He relaxed when he saw me still beside him, then noticed Dr. Patel and tensed slightly. "Hello, Noah," Dr. Patel said gently. "Do you remember me from yesterday? I'm Dr. Patel." Noah nodded cautiously. "Your grandma was just telling me how brave you've been." Dr. Patel continued, "And I agree. What you went through was very scary, and you handled it exactly right." Noah seemed to consider this, then asked in a small voice, Are they going to find my mom and the bad man? Dr. Patel glanced at me before answering. The police are looking for them very hard. They have a lot of people helping to find them. What happens when they find them? Noah asked, his eyes wide. They'll be arrested, I said firmly. They'll go to jail for what they did to your dad. And then I'll stay with you, Noah asked me, a hint of anxiety in his voice. Yes, sweetheart, I assured him. You'll come home with me to my house. Remember the big backyard with the maple tree and the bird feeder where the cardinals come? A small smile touched Noah's lips. And the creek at the bottom of the hill. That's right, I said. Relieved to see a spark of the old Noah. You can help me feed the birds and plant flowers in the garden. I'd like that, he said softly. Doctor, Patel smiled at this exchange. That sounds like a wonderful place to heal. Noah, and I know some nice doctors near your grandma's house who can talk with you about all the scary things that happened. Talking about scary things with someone you trust can help make them less scary. Noah considered this, then nodded solemnly. Okay. The rest of the day passed quietly. Noah ate a little more at lunch and dinner, and the color slowly returned to his cheeks. The doctors were pleased with his physical progress, though they wanted to keep him for at least another day for observation. In the evening, Officer Roberts returned with news. We've identified the truck from traffic camera footage. He told me in the hallway outside Noah's room. It's registered to a man named Marcus Wilson, who has a lengthy criminal record including assault and debt collection for illegal gambling operations. The man with the scar, I murmured. Officer Roberts nodded. The description matches. We're tracking his known locations now. We also found Amanda's last known address, an apartment complex on the east side of the city. We'll be checking it out first thing tomorrow morning. Do you think they're still in Chicago? I asked. It's likely, he replied. People like Wilson tend to have local connections they rely on, and if Amanda is waiting for an insurance payout, she'd need to maintain some presence here to manage that process. The thought of Amanda trying to collect on James's life insurance policy to profit from his death made my blood boil. She can't be allowed to get that money, I said fiercely. The insurance company has been notified of the circumstances, Officer Roberts assured me. No payout will be processed while she's a suspect in a homicide investigation. That night, I slept fitfully in the recliner beside Noah's bed. My dreams were haunted by images of James, blood pooling beneath his head, and Amanda standing over him with cold eyes. I woke early, disoriented for a moment before remembering where I was. Noah was still asleep, his face peaceful in the dim light of dawn. I quietly used the small bathroom attached to his room to freshen up, then returned to find him awake and watching the door anxiously. I'm right here, sweetheart, I said quickly. Just went to the bathroom. He relaxed visibly. I thought maybe you left. I won't leave you, Noah, I promised, sitting on the edge of his bed. Not ever. A nurse brought breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast today, which Noah ate with increasing appetite. Dr. Rivera came to check on him and was pleased with his progress. If he continues improving like this, we might be able to discharge him tomorrow. She told me. Physically, he's rebounding well. I want you to follow up with his pediatrician when you get home. Of course. What about his psychological state? I asked quietly, while Noah was distracted by a cartoon playing softly on the TV. Dr. Rivera's expression grew more serious. That's a longer road. Dr. Patel has recommended a trauma specialist in your area. Noah will need regular sessions, a stable routine, and a lot of patience and understanding. There may be nightmares, anxiety, regression in some behaviors. It's all normal after what he's experienced. I nodded, taking in this information. I'll do whatever he needs. I know you will, Dr. Rivera said kindly. That's why I'm optimistic about his recovery. Having you in his corner makes all the difference. Mid-morning, Officer Roberts called rather than visiting in person. His voice was tense with excitement. Mrs. Brown, we've located Amanda's apartment. We're preparing to check it out now. I wanted to let you know that we have officers at all exits and entrances to the building. If she's there, we'll find her. My heart raced. Please be careful. The man with her is dangerous. We're taking all precautions, he assured me. I'll call you as soon as we have news. I thanked him and ended the call, trying to keep my expression neutral for Noah's sake. But inside, I was a storm of emotions. Hope that they would find Amanda and her accomplice. Fear of what might happen if they resisted arrest. And beneath it all, the dull ache of grief for James that I had been holding at bay. The hours ticked by with excruciating slowness. Noah dozed on and off, still regaining his strength. I paced the small hospital room, checking my phone every few minutes for updates from Officer Roberts. Finally, in the early afternoon, my phone rang. I stepped into the hallway to take the call, not wanting to disturb Noah. "Mrs. Brown?" Officer Roberts' voice was a mix of frustration and determination. "Amanda wasn't at the apartment. The landlady said she left about 2 weeks ago, right around the time of your son's disappearance. Apparently, she was in a hurry, packed a large suitcase, and left in the middle of the night." My heart sank. "So she's gone. We're not giving up," he said firmly. "We found something interesting at the apartment. The landlady mentioned that a man had come by just yesterday looking for Amanda, described him as rough-looking with a leather jacket. When she told him Amanda had moved out, he became agitated, saying Amanda owed him a lot of money and had promised to pay him back within 2 weeks. Twist 5, the loan shark confirmed the motive and timeline. The loan shark, I breathed. It all fits together. Amanda needed money to pay off her debts. She went to James to get it, and when he refused, exactly, Officer Roberts confirmed. We've got an APB out for both Amanda and Marcus Wilson now. We're also checking all transportation hubs, airports, train stations, bus terminals. If they're trying to leave the city, we'll find them. After ending the call, I returned to Noah's room to find him awake and watching the door. "Was that the police?" he asked, surprisingly perceptive. I nodded, seeing no point in hiding it from him. "They're looking for your mom and the man who was with her." Noah's face clouded. "Are they going to come here?" "No, sweetheart," I assured him quickly. "They're far away from here, and there's a police officer right outside your door to keep you safe." He seemed to accept this, relaxing slightly against his pillows. "Grandma, when can we go home to your house? I mean, soon," I promised. "The doctors want to make sure you're strong enough first. Maybe tomorrow." Noah nodded, then asked the question I'd been dreading. "Is Dad really gone forever?" I sat beside him on the bed and took his small hands in mine. "Noah, your dad was hurt very badly. The doctors and police think that he didn't survive his injury." Tears welled in Noah's eyes. "I know," he whispered. "I saw the blood. Dad wasn't moving." I gathered him carefully into my arms. "Your dad loved you more than anything in the world, Noah, and he saved you. His last act was to protect you, to make sure you were safe. That's how much he loved you." Noah sobbed against my shoulder, his small body shaking with grief. I held him, rocking gently, my own tears falling silently. "It's okay to be sad," I murmured. "It's okay to cry. I miss him too. So much." After a while, Noah's sobs subsided to hiccups, then to the deep, even breathing of exhausted sleep. I continued to hold him, not wanting to let go. James, my only child. The quiet, thoughtful boy who had grown into a kind and caring man. The devoted father who had given his life to protect his son. The crushing weight of grief I'd been holding back broke through my defenses, and I wept silently, my tears falling into Noah's hair. I must have dozed off still holding Noah, because the next thing I knew, a gentle hand was on my shoulder. I opened my eyes to find Officer Roberts standing beside us, his expression grave but with a hint of excitement. "Mrs. Brown," he said softly, "we have a development. Could you step outside for a moment?" I carefully extricated myself from Noah's embrace, settling him against the pillows. He stirred slightly but didn't wake. In the hallway, Officer Roberts spoke in a low, urgent voice. "We've found Wilson's truck abandoned at a frozen goods warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It's a location known to be used by the loan shark operation he works for." My heart began to race. And James Officer Roberts' expression was compassionate but direct. "We've dispatched a forensic team to the warehouse. There's There's reason to believe we might find your son's remains there. I gripped the wall for support, the world tilting beneath me. Despite all the evidence, some part of me had still been clinging to hope. Irrational, desperate hope that James might somehow have survived. I understand this is incredibly difficult, Officer Roberts continued gently. But if we locate your son, we'll need you to make a formal identification. I nodded numbly. Of course. We've also been monitoring Amanda's known contacts and possible hideouts. There's a strong possibility she's planning to leave the city soon, especially if she realizes we're closing in. What about the insurance money? I asked, remembering the policy. We've confirmed with the insurance company that she made an inquiry about James's policy just yesterday, Officer Roberts said grimly. She's clearly planning to collect, but they're aware of the investigation now and won't process any claim. I leaned against the wall, trying to process everything. So she killed James, or was party to his death, and then just left Noah there to die too. It appears that way, Officer Roberts agreed, his voice hardening. Which makes this not just a homicide case, but also child endangerment and abandonment. The charges are mounting. Mrs. Brown, when we find her, she'll face serious consequences. I straightened, drawing strength from my anger. Find her, Officer Roberts. Find her and that man, and make them pay for what they did to my family. He nodded solemnly. We will. I promise you that. As he turned to leave, my phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. Mrs. Brown? A woman's voice asked. This is Detective Morales from the Chicago PD. I'm at the warehouse location Officer Roberts may have mentioned to you. My breath caught. Yes. Have you found something? There was a slight pause. Mrs. Brown, I'm very sorry to tell you this, but we've recovered a body from a freezer unit in the warehouse. Male, approximately your son's age and build. We'll need to conduct a formal identification, but you should prepare yourself for the possibility that it is James. Though I had been expecting this news, hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that threatened to break me. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. When I managed to ask, we'll need to transport the body to the medical examiner's office, Detective Morales explained gently. Would tomorrow morning be possible for you? I thought of Noah, still so fragile in his hospital bed. Yes, I'll need to make arrangements for my grandson, but yes, I can do that. After ending the call, I stood in the hallway for several minutes, trying to compose myself before returning to Noah. The reality I'd been dreading was here. James was almost certainly dead, his body callously hidden away in a freezer. The final tiny spark of hope I'd been nurturing was extinguished. I took several deep breaths, wiped my eyes, and forced my expression into something resembling calm before re-entering Noah's room. He was still asleep, his face peaceful in a way it hadn't been while awake. I sat beside his bed, watching him breathe, finding comfort in his presence, this precious piece of James that remained. Later that evening, after Noah had eaten dinner and was watching a cartoon, Dr. Patel returned to check on him. I stepped outside to speak with her privately and explain the latest developments. I need to go to the medical examiner's office tomorrow morning, I told her. To identify James's body, but I don't want to leave Noah alone. He's still so fragile, and he panics when I'm not here. Dr. Patel nodded understandingly. I can stay with him during that time. He knows me now, and it might be better than bringing in someone new. How will you explain your absence to him? I hadn't thought that far ahead. I don't know. I can't tell him I'm going to identify his father's body. But I don't want to lie to him either. In cases like this, Dr. Patel advised, a gentle version of the truth is often best. You could tell him you need to help the police with something important that will help catch the people who hurt his dad. I nodded gratefully. That makes sense. Thank you. Mrs. Brown, she added gently, have you considered grief counseling for yourself? You're carrying an enormous burden right now, caring for Noah, dealing with the investigation, and facing the loss of your son. It's a lot for anyone to handle alone. I hadn't thought about my own needs at all. I'll be fine, I said automatically. Noah is my priority now. Dr. Patel's expression was kind but firm. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say. Taking care of yourself is part of taking care of Noah. Just something to consider. Her words stayed with me that night as I tried to sleep in the uncomfortable recliner. She was right, of course. The weight of grief was crushing, but I'd been pushing it aside to focus on Noah, on the investigation, on the practical matters at hand. Sooner or later, I would have to face it fully. In the morning, I explained to Noah as gently as I could that I needed to leave for a few hours. The police need my help with something important, I told him. Something that will help them catch the people who hurt your dad. Noah's eyes widened with anxiety. Do you have to go? I do, sweetheart. But Dr. Patel will stay right here with you until I get back. And there's still a police officer outside your door to keep you safe. He clutched my hand. Promise you'll come back. I promise, I said firmly, kissing his forehead. I'll be back before lunch, and maybe by then the doctors will say you can come home with me tomorrow. This prospect brightened his expression slightly. To feed the birds. To feed the birds, I confirmed, forcing a smile. And to plant flowers in the garden when it gets warmer. Dr. Patel arrived, bringing a few children's books and a small puzzle she thought might interest Noah. He was hesitant at first, but seemed to warm to her gentle manner. I left with a heavy heart, turning back at the door to see Noah already engaged with the puzzle Dr. Patel had brought. He would be all right for a few hours. I only wished I could say the same for myself. The medical examiner's office was a stark clinical building near the hospital. Officer Roberts met me in the lobby, his expression grave but kind. Mrs. Brown, I know this is incredibly difficult. You don't have to do this if you don't feel able. I do, I said firmly. I need to know. He nodded in understanding and led me through a series of corridors to a small, private viewing room. A large window looked into another room where a body lay covered with a sheet on a metal table. The medical examiner will uncover only the face, Officer Roberts explained gently. All you need to do is indicate whether or not you recognize the deceased as your son. I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. A middle-aged woman in a lab coat entered the other room and approached the table. She glanced through the window at me, her expression compassionate, then carefully folded back the sheet to reveal the face of the deceased. Though I had tried to prepare myself, the sight of James's face, pale and still in death, hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the edge of the counter before me, my knees threatening to buckle. It was him, my son. Despite the pallor of death, despite the slight distortion from his time in the freezer, I would have recognized him anywhere. The straight nose, the strong jawline, the thick eyebrows, features I had known and loved for 35 years. Yes, I whispered, my voice breaking. That's James. That's my son. Officer Roberts placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. Thank you, Mrs. Brown. I know how hard that was. The medical examiner covered James's face again and exited the room. A moment later, she joined us in the viewing room. Mrs. Brown, I'm Dr. Lowenstein, she introduced herself. I'm very sorry for your loss. Would you like to know our preliminary findings? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Your son died from a severe traumatic brain injury consistent with a fall where the head impacts a hard angular surface, such as the corner of a coffee table, as described by your grandson. The time of death is consistent with the night of the storm 2 weeks ago. Her clinical description matched exactly what Noah had witnessed. James had died that night, just as Noah had feared. What happens now? I asked, my voice hollow. We'll complete our examination. Dr. Lowenstein explained. The body will then be released to the funeral home of your choice. Officer Roberts can help you with those arrangements when you're ready. I thanked her numbly and allowed Officer Roberts to guide me back to the lobby. The reality of James's death had fully landed now, crushing and inescapable. I'd like to sit for a moment, I said, sinking onto a bench in the lobby. Officer Roberts sat beside me, respectful of my grief, but clearly with more to say. Yeah. After a few minutes of silence, he spoke gently. Mrs. Brown, there are some developments in the case I should share with you. We found evidence in the warehouse, a blanket with blood that matches your son's type. and a woman's jacket that we believe belongs to Amanda. DNA testing is underway to confirm." I nodded, processing this information through the fog of grief. "More importantly," he continued, "one of Wilson's associates was picked up last night in an unrelated matter. When he learned about our investigation, he offered information in exchange for consideration in his own case. This caught my attention." "What kind of information?" "He claims to know where Wilson and Amanda were planning to go," Officer Roberts said, his voice tightening with controlled excitement. "An abandoned house on the outskirts of the city where they've been laying low. We're preparing to raid the location now." A surge of something, not quite hope, but perhaps purpose, cut through my grief. "You're going to arrest them." "If they're there, yes," he confirmed. "I wanted you to know because this could all be resolved very soon." I straightened, drawing strength from the prospect of justice for James. "Thank you for telling me. I should get back to Noah now. He gets anxious when I'm gone too long." Officer Roberts drove me back to the hospital, filling me in on more details of the investigation along the way. The case against Amanda and Wilson was solid. Noah's testimony, the physical evidence at James's house, the body in the warehouse linked to Wilson's criminal associates, the life insurance policy providing clear motive. When they were caught, they would face murder charges, among others. At the hospital, I found Noah and Dr. Patel engaged in a game of Go Fish. Noah's face lit up when he saw me, and he scrambled off the bed to hug me tightly. "You came back," he said, his voice muffled against my waist. "Of course I did," I replied, stroking his hair. "I promised I would." Dr. Patel gathered her things, giving me a questioning look. I nodded slightly, confirming what she had already guessed, that the body had indeed been James's. She squeezed my arm supportively before leaving us alone. Noah looked up at me, his expression suddenly serious. "Did you help the police find the bad people who hurt Dad?" I knelt to his level, holding his small shoulders gently. "Yes, Noah. The police are very close to finding them now. They think they know where your mom and that man are hiding." His eyes widened. "Are they going to jail?" "Yes, sweetheart," I assured him. "They're going to jail for what they did to your dad and for leaving you alone like that." Noah seemed to process this information, his brow furrowed in thought. "Good," he finally said, with a vehemence that surprised me. "They should go to jail forever." I couldn't disagree. "The police will make sure they can't hurt anyone else ever again." Noah returned to his bed, suddenly looking tired. "Can we go home tomorrow? Grandma, I don't like it here." "The doctors think you might be well enough," I told him. "We'll see what they say in the morning." As Noah dozed off for an afternoon nap, I sat beside his bed, watching the gentle rise and fall of his chest. My mind was a tumult of grief and anger and determination. James was gone, confirmed beyond any doubt now, but Noah remained, this precious child who had survived an unimaginable ordeal. I would protect him with everything I had. I would help him heal. I would ensure that those responsible for James's death faced justice. In the midst of my darkest hour, I made a silent vow to my son. Your boy will be safe with me. James, I will raise him with all the love and care you would have given him. And I will make sure that those who took you from us pay for what they've done. Twist 6, the final piece, fell into place when my phone rang late that afternoon. It was Officer Roberts, his voice tight with controlled excitement. "Mrs. Brown, we've arrested Marcus Wilson. He was attempting to flee the city when we apprehended him at a bus terminal. He's in custody now and talking, trying to cut a deal." My heart raced. "And Amanda, Wilson has given us her location. She's at a copy shop downtown, apparently trying to forge documents for leaving the country. We have officers en route now." I closed my eyes, relief washing over me. "Thank you, Officer Roberts. Thank you for everything. I'll call you as soon as we have her in custody," he promised. I ended the call and looked at Noah, still sleeping peacefully. Soon, I would be able to tell him that the people who hurt his father were locked away, that they could never harm him again. It wouldn't bring James back, but perhaps it would help Noah begin to heal, knowing that justice had been served. As the sun set outside the hospital window, casting long shadows across Noah's room, I felt the first tentative stirrings of hope beneath the weight of grief. We had a long road ahead, Noah's recovery, my own grief to process, a new life to build together, but we would face it one step at a time, and we would face it together. The call came 2 hours later. I had been dozing lightly in the recliner beside Noah's bed when my phone vibrated against my leg. I answered quickly, not wanting the sound to wake Noah. "Mrs. Brown." Officer Roberts' voice was triumphant. "We've got her. Amanda is in custody." A wave of relief so intense it was almost painful washed over me. "Where did you find her?" "Just where Wilson said she'd be. She was at a copy shop downtown, using fake ID to have documents created for leaving the country. She didn't even put up a fight when our officers arrived, just went completely silent." I glanced at Noah, still sleeping peacefully. "Does she know you found James?" "Yes. We informed her during initial questioning. She's maintained her innocence, claiming Wilson acted alone in disposing of James's body. But with the evidence we have, plus Wilson's testimony, her denials don't hold much weight." I closed my eyes, picturing Amanda in handcuffs, the woman who had once been part of our family, who had given birth to Noah, who had ultimately caused James's death through her greed and desperation. "What happens now?" I asked. "They'll both be arraigned tomorrow morning," Officer Roberts explained. "Given the severity of the charges and the flight risk, I expect they'll be held without bail. The district attorney is already preparing the case." "Will Noah have to testify?" I asked, my protective instincts flaring. "Not at this stage," he assured me. "His recorded statement will be sufficient for the arraignment and preliminary hearings. If the case goes to trial, which seems unlikely given the evidence, we'd discuss options to minimize his trauma, perhaps video testimony or a deposition rather than appearing in court." I thanked him for the update, my mind already turning to what lay ahead. With Amanda and Wilson in custody, the immediate danger had passed. Now came the harder part, helping Noah heal from his trauma while processing my own grief. The next morning, Dr. Rivera examined Noah one final time and declared him well enough to be discharged. "Physically, he's recovering nicely," she told me. "Continue with small, frequent meals to rebuild his strength. The pediatrician in your hometown can monitor his progress. As for the psychological aspect," she glanced at Noah, who was sitting on the bed, swinging his legs as a nurse removed his IV. "Dr. Patel has recommended a child psychologist near your home. I strongly encourage you to follow up with them as soon as possible." "I will," I promised. "Thank you for everything you've done for him." As we prepared to leave, Officer Davis arrived with news that the media had gotten wind of the arrests and the unusual circumstances of the case. "There may be reporters at the hospital entrance," he warned. "I can escort you to your car through a back exit if you prefer." I nodded gratefully. "Yes, please. Noah doesn't need any more stress right now." He led us through service corridors and a staff parking area to my rental car, which had been delivered yesterday. Noah clutched my hand tightly, looking around nervously at the unfamiliar surroundings. "It's okay, sweetheart," I assured him. "We're going home now." As we drove away from the hospital, Noah looked out the window silently, his small face solemn. After a few minutes, he asked, "Grandma, when can I see Dad?" My heart contracted painfully. I had been dreading this question. "Noah, remember how we talked about your dad being very badly hurt?" He nodded, his eyes suddenly filling with tears. "He's not coming back, is he?" "No, sweetheart," I said gently. "His injury was too severe. He died that night." Noah was quiet for a long moment, processing this confirmation of what he had already suspected. "Where is he now?" he finally asked. "His body is with doctors who take special care of people after they die," I explained, struggling to find age-appropriate words. "Soon, we'll have a special ceremony to say goodbye to him, and then he'll be buried in a peaceful place where we can visit him." Noah considered this. "Will he be buried near your house so we can visit him a lot?" "Yes," I promised, tears threatening. "There's a beautiful cemetery with big trees just a few miles from my house. We can visit whenever you want." He fell silent again, watching the city pass by outside the window. After a while, he asked, Are Mom and the bad man in jail now? Yes, they are. They can't hurt anyone anymore. Climax 2. As we were about to exit the city, my phone rang. It was Officer Roberts again. Mrs. Brown, I know you're on your way home, but I thought you should know. Amanda is asking to speak with you. I was so shocked I nearly missed a stoplight. With me, why? She won't say. She's been mostly uncooperative, but she's insistent about this. You're under no obligation to speak with her. Of course. I glanced at Noah, who was watching me with curious eyes. I can't right now, I said carefully. I'm driving Noah home. I understand, Officer Roberts replied. The offer stands if you change your mind. She'll be at the downtown precinct until her transfer to county later today. After ending the call, I tried to focus on driving, but my mind was racing. What could Amanda possibly want to say to me? An apology, an explanation, some last attempt at manipulation. Who is that? Grandma? Noah asked. Just the police officer, letting me know everything is okay, I said, not wanting to upset him with the truth. We stopped for lunch at a quiet diner off the highway. Noah ate half a grilled cheese sandwich, more than I expected, and seemed to relax slightly as we got farther from Chicago. But I couldn't stop thinking about Amanda's request. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to focus solely on getting Noah home and starting our healing process. But another part, the part that needed answers, that needed to look in the eyes of the woman who had destroyed our family, was pulling me back toward the city. After lunch, I made a decision. I called my neighbor, Martha, who had been keeping an eye on my house during my absence. Martha, I need a huge favor, I explained after updating her on the situation. Could Noah stay with you for a few hours? I need to go back to Chicago to take care of something important. Martha, bless her, agreed immediately. Of course, Linda, he'll be safe with me. I'll make up the spare room and find some toys my grandkids left last visit. I turned to Noah, who was watching me with those two perceptive eyes. Noah, I need to go back to the city for a little while. You're going to stay with my neighbor Martha. She's very nice, and she has a friendly old dog named Rusty. Fear flashed across his face. Why do you have to go back? Is it Mom? Is she coming after me? I took his hands in mine. No, sweetheart. Your mom is in jail, and she can't hurt you anymore. But there are some things I need to take care of about your dad. Important things that will help us say goodbye to him properly. It wasn't entirely a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. I felt guilty for the omission, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him I was going to confront the woman who had caused his father's death. Will you come back? He asked, his voice small. Of course I will, I promised. Tonight, and then we'll be together at my house. Your house now, too. He seemed to accept this, though reluctantly. We drove the rest of the way to my town in companionable silence, Noah occasionally pointing out interesting sights along the highway. Martha welcomed us warmly. Her kind face creased with concern as she took in Noah's thin frame and solemn expression. Her elderly golden retriever, Rusty, immediately came to sniff Noah's hand, his tail wagging gently. This must be Noah, Martha said, kneeling to his level. I've heard so much about you. Would you like to help me bake some cookies while your grandma takes care of her errands? Noah looked at me uncertainly. I nodded encouragingly, and he turned back to Martha with a tentative smile. What kind of cookies? Chocolate chip, of course, Martha replied, as if it were obvious. With extra chips, the way I always make them. I hugged Noah tightly before leaving. I'll be back tonight, sweetheart. Be good for Martha. Okay. He nodded, already being led toward the kitchen by Martha, Rusty padding along behind them. The drive back to Chicago seemed twice as long without Noah beside me. I had time to think, to plan what I might say to Amanda. Anger, grief, and curiosity warred within me. What could she possibly say that would matter now? What explanation could justify what she had done at the downtown precinct? Officer Roberts met me in the lobby. Mrs. Brown, thank you for coming. I want to be clear. You don't have to do this. And if you do, I'll be in the room with you the entire time. I need to see her, I said firmly. I need to understand why she did this. He nodded, leading me through security checkpoints to a small interview room. She's being brought in now. Remember, you can end this conversation at any time." I sat at the metal table, my hands clasped tightly in my lap to hide their trembling. A few minutes later, the door opened, and Amanda was led in by a female officer. Her hands were cuffed in front of her, and she wore an orange jumpsuit. Her once beautiful face was haggard, her eyes hollow, her blonde hair limp and unwashed. For a moment, we simply stared at each other across the table. I searched her face for any trace of the young woman I had once welcomed into our family, the woman James had loved, the mother of my grandson. I found nothing familiar in her cold eyes. "Linda," she finally said, her voice rough. "You came. Why did you want to see me?" "Amanda?" I asked, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. She glanced at Officer Roberts, who stood impassively by the door, then leaned forward slightly. "How's Noah?" The question caught me off guard. "He's traumatized," I said flatly. "He hid under his bed for 2 weeks after watching his father die. He was dehydrated, malnourished, terrified. How do you think he is?" Amanda flinched slightly. "I didn't know he was there. James said he was with you. He lied to protect his son," I replied. "His last act was to hide Noah from you and that thug you brought into his home." She looked down at her cuffed hands. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Wilson wasn't supposed to hurt James. He was just there to scare him, to make him give me the money." "The money for your gambling debts," I said, unable to keep the contempt from my voice. "The same debts James had already helped you pay multiple times." Amanda's jaw tightened. "You don't understand. These weren't ordinary debts. These people. They don't just send collection notices. They break bones. They threatened to hurt Noah if I didn't pay. So instead, you got his father killed and left him to die alone in that house," I retorted. A stellar maternal instinct. Her eyes flashed with anger. "I didn't mean for James to die when he fell. When I saw the blood, I panicked. Wilson said we had to get rid of the body, that we'd both go to prison if we called for help." "And the insurance policy?" I asked coldly. "Was that just a convenient bonus?" Amanda had the grace to look ashamed. "I knew about the policy. James never changed the beneficiary after the divorce. I thought maybe that was a sign he still cared, that he wanted to make sure I'd be okay." "He forgot," I said bluntly. "He was busy being a single father to the son you abandoned." She flinched again. "I didn't abandon Noah. James got full custody because of my problems, but I never stopped loving my son." "Love?" I couldn't keep the incredulity from my voice. "You left him alone in that house. You never went back to check on him. If I hadn't gone to look for them, Noah would have died under that bed, waiting for his father to return." Tears welled in Amanda's eyes. "I thought he was with you. I swear, Linda, I would never have left him there if I knew." I studied her face, searching for truth in her words. Perhaps she was sincere about this one thing. Perhaps she hadn't known Noah was in the house. But it changed nothing about what she had done. "Why did you want to see me, Amanda?" I asked again. "To ease your conscience, to ask forgiveness because I don't have any to give you." She wiped at her tears with cuffed hands. "I wanted to know that Noah was okay, and I wanted to tell you that I'll sign away my parental rights. Noah should be with you. You're the only real mother he has left." Climax 3, I hadn't expected this. For a moment, I was speechless. "Wilson is testifying against me," Amanda continued. "I'm going to prison for a long time. Noah deserves better than a mother behind bars. He deserves you." I leaned forward, looking directly into her eyes. "Noah already has me. I would have fought you with everything I had to keep him away from you. But I'm grateful that you're making the right decision for once." Amanda nodded, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "There's something else. James had a safety deposit box at First National. The key is in his desk drawer at home. There are important documents in there, things Noah might need someday." I made a mental note of this information, wondering why she was sharing it now. "Tell Noah," Amanda began, then faltered. "Tell Noah I'm sorry. Not that it matters. But I am sorry." I stood, signaling that the conversation was over. "Goodbye, Amanda." As I turned to leave, she called after me. "Linda, take care of my boy." I paused at the door but didn't turn back. "I will, not for you, but for James, and for Noah himself." Officer Roberts escorted me back to the lobby. "Are you all right, Mrs. Brown?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Yes, I got what I needed. She's going to sign away her parental rights." He nodded approvingly. "That will make things easier legally. I'll have our victim services coordinator contact you about the formal guardianship process." I thanked him for everything he had done, and he promised to keep me updated on the case as it progressed. But as I walked to my car, I knew the legal proceedings were just formalities now. The real work, helping Noah heal, building a new life together, honoring James's memory, lay ahead of us. The drive back to my town was quieter somehow. The weight of confrontation lifted from my shoulders. Amanda's face, hollow-eyed and defeated, stayed with me, but it no longer held power. She had made her choices, and now she would live with the consequences. When I arrived at Martha's house, it was nearly dark. The porch light was on, and through the window, I could see Noah sitting at the kitchen table, apparently engrossed in a board game with Martha. The sight of him, safe, engaged, beginning to heal, filled me with profound gratitude. Martha opened the door before I could knock. "He's doing well," she whispered. "We baked cookies, played with Rusty, and now we're on our third game of Candyland. He's beaten me twice." I smiled, my heart lighter than it had been in days. "Thank you, Martha, for everything." "Anytime," she said, squeezing my arm. "He's a wonderful boy. James did a good job with him." "Yes," I agreed, my throat tight with emotion. "Yes, he did." Noah looked up as I entered the kitchen, his face brightening. "Grandma, you came back?" "Of course I did, sweetheart," I said, gathering him into a hug. I promised I would. "Martha let me help make cookies," he announced proudly. "And Rusty did tricks for me. He can roll over and shake hands." "That sounds wonderful," I said, meeting Martha's eyes over his head with silent gratitude. As we walked the short distance to my house, Noah's house now too, he held my hand tightly, looking around at the quiet neighborhood with curious eyes. "Is this where Dad grew up?" he asked. "Yes," I replied, smiling at the memory. "This is where your dad lived until he went to college. That tree in the front yard. He helped me plant it when he was about your age." Noah studied the maple tree with new interest. "Can I help you plant a tree too?" "Of course," I promised. "In the spring, we'll plant a new tree together, a special one, just for you." As we entered the house, Noah looked around with wide eyes, taking in the comfortable living room with its well-worn furniture, the kitchen with copper pots hanging above the island, the photographs of James that adorned the walls. "Is that my dad when he was little?" he asked, pointing to a picture of James at about Noah's age, grinning with a missing front tooth. "Yes, that's him," I said, studying the photograph with a bittersweet pang. "You look just like him." Noah moved from picture to picture, examining each one carefully. "There are so many of him, and now there will be many of you too." I told him, "This is your home now, Noah, for as long as you want it to be." He turned to me, his small face serious. "Forever." I knelt to his level, taking his hands in mine. "Forever, if that's what you want. Your dad would want you to be happy, to be safe, and I want that too." Noah threw his arms around my neck, hugging me tightly. "I want to stay with you forever, Grandma." I held him close, feeling his small heart beating against mine, and made another silent promise to James. "Your son is safe with me now. I will love him and protect him with everything I have. I will make sure he grows up knowing how much you loved him. I will keep your memory alive in his heart." As night fell, I tucked Noah into the bed in what had once been James's childhood room. The stars we had painted on the ceiling when James was 10 still glowed faintly in the darkness. "Look up," I told Noah. Your dad and I painted those stars together. He used to say they helped him dream good dreams. Noah gazed up at the stars, his eyes wide with wonder. Do you think they'll help me have good dreams too? I think they might, I said softly. And if you have bad dreams, I'll be right down the hall. You can come get me anytime. He nodded, clutching the teddy bear a nurse had given him at the hospital. Grandma, is Dad watching over us now from heaven? The question caught me off guard, but I answered from my heart. Yes, Noah, I believe he is. Your dad loved you more than anything in the world. That kind of love doesn't just disappear. Satisfied with this answer, Noah closed his eyes. Good night, Grandma. Good night, Dad. He whispered to the stars above. Good night, sweet boy, I replied, kissing his forehead. Sleep well. As I closed his door part way, leaving the hallway light on in case he woke during the night, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be nightmares and tears, grief and healing, legal proceedings and new beginnings. But we would face it together, Noah and I, with James's memory to guide us. In the quiet of my kitchen, I finally allowed myself to fully feel the grief I had been holding at bay. I wept for James, my beautiful boy, taken too soon. I wept for Noah, so young to have endured such trauma. And I wept for myself, a mother who had outlived her child, a fate no parent should suffer. But beneath the grief was a flicker of hope. Noah was safe. Those responsible for James's death would face justice, and somehow we would build a new life from the ashes of the old. Outside the window, the stars shone brightly in the clear night sky, the same stars James had loved as a boy, the same stars that now watched over his son. Good night, James, I whispered to the heavens. I've got him now, I promise you. He's safe with me. The weeks that followed were a delicate balance of grief and healing, of endings and beginnings. Noah and I fell into a gentle routine in my small house, each day bringing small victories and occasional setbacks. The first week was the hardest. Noah woke screaming from nightmares nearly every night, his small body trembling with remembered terror. I would rush to his room, gathering him into my arms, rocking him gently until his breathing steadied. I'm here, Noah, I would whisper. You're safe now. During the day, he was often quiet, following me from room to room as if afraid I might disappear if he let me out of his sight. He approached the house cautiously, exploring each room with careful deliberation, as if mapping escape routes. I contacted the child psychologist Dr. Patel had recommended, a kind-eyed woman named Dr. Bennett, who specialized in childhood trauma. Noah was reluctant at first, clinging to my hand when I tried to leave him for his first session. I'll be right outside the door, I promised. Just on the other side, and you can call for me anytime. Doctor, Bennett smiled reassuringly. We're just going to talk and maybe draw some pictures today. Noah, nothing scary. He eventually nodded, releasing my hand with visible effort. When I picked him up an hour later, he seemed thoughtful but less tense. Dr. Bennett has a fish tank, he told me on the drive home. The blue fish is named Bubbles. It was a small thing, but I recognized it as progress, the first time he'd volunteered information without being asked. We settled into a patterned breakfast together at the kitchen table, followed by homeschooling lessons the local school had agreed he could finish the year at home given the circumstances, then lunch and quiet activities in the afternoon. 3 times a week, we visited Dr. Bennett, and gradually, Noah began to open up more. Officer Roberts called regularly with updates on the case. Amanda and Marcus Wilson had both been formally charged, Amanda with second-degree murder, child endangerment, and insurance fraud, Wilson with second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. Both were being held without bail. Wilson is cooperating fully, Officer Roberts told me. He's hoping for a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony against Amanda. The district attorney believes they have a strong case for conviction. And Amanda, I asked, stepping onto the porch to speak privately while Noah colored at the kitchen table. She's maintained that she never intended for James to be killed, that Wilson acted on his own in the heat of the moment. But with Wilson's testimony and the evidence we've gathered, her defense is weak. The DA is confident she'll serve significant time. I thought of Noah, slowly healing from the trauma inflicted by his mother's actions. Good, I said simply. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after we'd returned home, I found Noah standing in the hallway, staring intently at a photograph of James as a teenager, proudly holding up a trophy from a science fair. Dad was smart, wasn't he? Noah asked as I approached. Very smart, I agreed, standing beside him. He won that trophy for a project about renewable energy. He built a little wind turbine that could power a light bulb. Noah studied the picture, his expression thoughtful. I miss him, Grandma. I knelt beside him, putting my arm around his thin shoulders. I miss him too, sweetheart. Every day. Sometimes I forget what his voice sounded like, Noah confessed, his voice small. Does that make me a bad son? No, Noah, I said firmly. It doesn't make you bad at all. It's normal to have trouble remembering everything. That's why we have pictures and videos to help us. His eyes widened. You have videos of Dad? I nodded. I have home movies from when he was growing up, and I think there are some recent ones on his laptop that we brought from your old house. Would you like to watch some? He nodded eagerly, the first real enthusiasm I'd seen from him since the tragedy. That evening, we sat together on the sofa, watching old VHS tapes I'd converted to digital years ago. James riding his first bike, opening presents on Christmas morning, performing in a school play. Noah watched with rapt attention, occasionally pointing at the screen with delight. Dad looks like me, he exclaimed as a 10-year-old James grinned at the camera, showing off a science project. He does, I agreed, my heart full. You have his smile, his eyes, even the way he tilts his head when he's thinking hard about something. Later, I connected James's laptop to the TV. There weren't many videos, but we found a precious few. James and Noah building a snowman the previous winter. Noah's last birthday party where James had smeared frosting on his own nose to make Noah laugh. A trip to the zoo where Noah had been fascinated by the penguins. As James's voice filled the room, warm, gentle, full of love for his son, I saw Noah's eyes light up with recognition. That's how he sounded, he whispered, as if to himself. I remember now. That night, for the first time since we'd come home, Noah slept through the night without nightmares. The next morning, he came to breakfast with a determined look on his small face. Grandma, can we visit Dad's grave today? The question caught me off guard. James's funeral had been small and private, held while Noah was still in the hospital. I'd explained to Noah that his father had been buried in the peaceful cemetery a few miles from our house, but he hadn't asked to visit until now. Of course we can, I said, studying his face. Are you sure you're ready? He nodded solemnly. I want to talk to him. Doctor, Bennett says it's okay to talk to people even after they're gone. After breakfast, we drove to the cemetery. It was a beautiful spring day, the kind James had always loved. Birds sang in the ancient oak trees that dotted the grounds, and wildflowers had begun to bloom among the graves. James's plot was beneath a spreading maple tree, the polished granite headstone still so new it gleamed in the morning light. I'd chosen the inscription carefully, James Michael Brown, beloved son and father, forever in our hearts. Noah stood quietly beside me, his small hand in mine, looking at the headstone with a mixture of sadness and curiosity. This is where Dad is now, he asked. His body is here, I explained gently. But the part of him that made him your dad, his love, his thoughts, his spirit, that's all around us, especially in you. Noah nodded as if this made perfect sense to him. Then he took a step forward, releasing my hand. Hi, Dad, he said to the headstone, his voice small but steady. It's me, Noah. I'm living with Grandma now. She takes good care of me, and she has pictures of you everywhere. I stepped back slightly, giving him space for this private moment. Noah continued, gaining confidence as he spoke. I miss you a lot. Grandma says you saved me by telling me to hide. That was really brave. His voice caught slightly. I tried to stay hidden like you said, but I got really thirsty. I hope you're not mad that I came out to get water. Tears filled my eyes as I watched this brave little boy, confronting his loss with such honesty. The police caught Mom and the bad man, Noah continued. They can't hurt anyone else now. Grandma says they'll be in jail for a long time. He paused, scuffing his shoe in the grass. I'm not having so many bad dreams anymore. Dr. Bennett is helping me. She has a fish named Bubbles. He fell silent for a moment, then added, I love you, Dad. Grandma says you can hear me, so I wanted you to know that. Noah turned back to me, his eyes wet but his expression peaceful. Is it okay if we come back again? I think Dad might get lonely. I knelt and hugged him tightly. We can come as often as you want, sweetheart. As we walked back to the car hand in hand, I felt a subtle shift in Noah, as if some of the weight he'd been carrying had lifted. He wasn't healed, the road ahead was still long, but he had taken an important step forward. That evening, as I tucked him into bed, Noah asked, Grandma, what's going to happen to Mom? I sat on the edge of his bed, considering how to answer. I had been expecting this question, but it still caught me off guard. Your mom and Mr. Wilson are going to have a trial, I explained carefully. That's where they tell their side of the story, and the police tell what they found out, and then a judge and jury decide what should happen. Noah nodded, processing this. Will they go to jail forever? For a very long time, I said. What they did was very serious. He was quiet for a moment, then asked, Do I have to see Mom at the trial? No, sweetheart, I assured him quickly. You won't have to see her. The police have your statement already, and that's all they need. Relief washed over his face. Good. I don't want to see her. He hesitated, then added in a small voice, Is it bad that I'm mad at her? She's my mom. But she hurt Dad. I stroked his hair gently. It's not bad at all. Noah, your feelings are perfectly normal. You can be angry and sad and confused all at the same time. That's okay. Dr. Bennett says it's okay to have big feelings, he agreed solemnly. As long as I talk about them instead of keeping them inside. Dr. Bennett is very wise, I smiled. And you're very brave for talking about your feelings. Noah snuggled deeper under the covers, hugging his teddy bear close. Grandma, are you my legal guardian now? The question startled me with its adult phrasing. Where did you hear that term? Dr. Bennett explained it, he said. She said since Dad is gone and Mom is in jail, you're taking care of me legally now. Is that right? Yes, I confirmed. I am your legal guardian. That means I'm responsible for taking care of you, making sure you have what you need, and making important decisions until you're grown up. Good, he said with finality. I want you to be my guardian. Forever. I leaned down and kissed his forehead. Then that's what I'll be. The next morning, I received a call from the district attorney's office. The prosecutor assigned to James's case, a woman named Sarah Mitchell, wanted to meet with me to discuss the upcoming proceedings. Noah is in school today, Ms. Mitchell asked when I answered. No, he's still homeschooling, I explained. He's working on math problems in the kitchen right now. I see, she said. I was hoping we could speak privately. There have been some developments in the case that I'd like to discuss with you. We arranged for her to visit that afternoon during Noah's therapy session with Dr. Bennett. Ms. Mitchell arrived precisely on time, a slim woman in her 40s with keen eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. We sat in my living room, the spring sunshine streaming through the windows. Mrs. Brown, I'll get straight to the point, she began. Marcus Wilson has agreed to testify against Amanda in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony is damning. He claims Amanda specifically discussed using the life insurance money to pay off her gambling debts, weeks before your son's death. I gripped the arms of my chair. Are you saying this was premeditated? Ms. Mitchell nodded grimly. Wilson claims Amanda approached him about scaring James into giving her money. When that plan failed and James was accidentally killed, Amanda allegedly said, Well, the insurance will have to do then. This substantially changes the nature of the case. From second-degree to first-degree murder, I said, understanding immediately. Exactly. With Wilson's testimony and the evidence we've gathered about the insurance policy, we believe we can prove Amanda had a financial motive to see James dead. She may not have intended for him to die that night specifically, but Wilson claims she had discussed accidents that could befall James in the weeks prior. A cold fury washed over me. Amanda had contemplated James's death, had discussed ways it might happen, all for money. Money that would have gone to Noah if James had updated his policy after the divorce. What does this mean for her sentence? I asked. If convicted of first-degree murder, she would face a minimum of 20 years to life without the possibility of parole. Ms. Mitchell explained. Given the aggravating factors, the abandonment of a child, the attempted insurance fraud, we would push for the maximum sentence. I nodded, a grim satisfaction settling over me. And Wilson, in exchange for his testimony, we're offering a plea deal for second-degree murder, 15 to 20 years, with the possibility of parole after 15. It seems light, I remarked. It is. Ms. Mitchell agreed. But his testimony is crucial, and he appears genuinely remorseful. He claims he never knew Noah was in the house, and that he argued with Amanda about calling for help for James, but was overruled. I thought of Noah, hiding under his bed, listening to his father's body being dragged away. When is the trial? That's the other reason I wanted to speak with you, Ms. Mitchell said. There may not be a trial. Amanda's attorney has approached us about a plea deal. This surprised me. She's willing to plead guilty. Her attorney has seen the evidence against her. With Wilson's testimony, her chances at trial are slim. They're exploring options, but I wanted to get your input before we proceed. As the victim's mother and the guardian of his minor son, your opinion matters to the court. I considered this carefully. A trial would be public, messy, possibly traumatic for Noah even if he didn't have to testify. A plea deal would avoid that, would provide swift closure. What kind of deal are they asking for? I asked. They're hoping for second-degree murder with a sentence of 20 to 25 years, Miss Mitchell replied. We've countered with first-degree murder, 25 to life. We're still negotiating. If she accepts the plea, would she waive her right to appeal? Ms. Mitchell nodded. That would be part of the deal. And she's already signed the paperwork relinquishing her parental rights to Noah. I took a deep breath, thinking of what James would want. What would be best for Noah? I support the plea deal, I said finally. But I want the maximum sentence possible. She left her son to die in that house. She doesn't deserve leniency. Ms. Mitchell made a note. I'll convey your position to the judge. Your statement will carry significant weight. After she left, I sat quietly in the living room, processing everything. The revelation that Amanda had contemplated James's death before it happened made my blood run cold. The woman I had once welcomed into our family as James's wife, as Noah's mother, had become a monster I barely recognized. When I picked up Noah from his therapy session, Dr. Bennett asked to speak with me privately for a moment. Noah made significant progress today, she told me, her expression encouraging. He drew a picture of his family, you, him, and James in the sky as an angel. It's the first time he's been able to express his understanding of death in a healthy way. She showed me the drawing, simple but poignant, with a smiling son and a house that was clearly mine. 3 figures stood in front, labeled me, Grandma, and floating above, with wings and a halo. Dad, this is wonderful, Isates said, blinking back tears. He's resilient, Dr. Bennett said warmly. With your support and continued therapy, I believe he'll emerge from this trauma stronger than we might expect. Children have an extraordinary capacity for healing when they feel safe and loved. Noah was quiet on the drive home, looking out the window at the spring landscape. Finally, he asked, Grandma, what happens to bad people who say they're sorry? Do they still get punished? I glanced at him, wondering what had prompted this question. Usually, yes. Saying sorry is important, but it doesn't erase what they did. Why do you ask? He shrugged, still looking out the window. Dr. Bennett says sometimes people do bad things because they're sick in their minds or hearts. Like Mom. She says Mom might be sorry now, but it doesn't fix what happened to Dad. Dr. Bennett is right, I said carefully. Your mom made very bad choices that hurt a lot of people, especially you and your dad. Even if she's sorry now, there are consequences for those choices. Noah nodded, seeming satisfied with this answer. That's fair, he said with surprising maturity. That evening, after Noah was asleep, I received another call from Ms. Mitchell. Mrs. Brown, I wanted to update you. Amanda has accepted our plea deal. She'll plead guilty to first-degree murder and will receive a sentence of 30 years to life, with no possibility of parole for 30 years. The formal hearing is scheduled for next week. Relief washed over me. Thank you for letting me know. There's one more thing, Ms. Mitchell added. Amanda has requested to read a statement at the hearing. It would be addressed to you and Noah. You're not obligated to attend. Of course, I considered this. I'll be there, but Noah won't. He's been through enough. I understand completely, she assured me. I'll see you at the courthouse next Tuesday at 10 a.m. After hanging up, I sat on my back porch, looking up at the stars. 30 years. Amanda would be in her 60s before she could even be considered for parole. Noah would be a grown man, nearly 40 years old. Justice. Cold but necessary. We got her, James, I whispered to the night sky. She'll pay for what she did to you. To Noah. As the day of the hearing approached, I grew increasingly anxious. I hadn't seen Amanda since our confrontation at the police station, and I wasn't sure how I would react to seeing her again, to hearing whatever statement she wanted to make. Martha agreed to stay with Noah during the hearing. Take all the time you need, she assured me. Noah and I will bake cookies and take Rusty for a walk. He won't even notice you're gone. I chose my outfit carefully that morning, a simple black dress James had always liked. Pearl earrings he had given me for Mother's Day years ago. I wanted to carry a piece of him with me into that courtroom. Noah was concerned when he saw me dressed formally. Where are you going, Grandma? I have to go to court today, I explained gently. Remember how we talked about your mom having to face consequences for what she did? Today is when the judge will decide those consequences. His eyes widened. Will you see her? Yes, I admitted. But don't worry. She can't hurt anyone anymore. Noah chewed his lip thoughtfully. Can you tell her something from me? I knelt to his level, surprised. Of course, sweetheart. What would you like me to tell her? He thought for a moment, then said with simple dignity, Tell her I'm okay now. Grandma is taking care of me. His words brought tears to my eyes. Even after everything he'd been through, there was no hatred in his heart, only the desire to move forward. I'll tell her, I promised. The courthouse was crowded, but Officer Roberts met me at the entrance and escorted me to a reserved seat in the front row. Ms. Mitchell nodded to me from the prosecutor's table, her expression confident. When Amanda was led in, I barely recognized her. Her once vibrant blonde hair hung limp around her pale face, and the orange jumpsuit seemed to swallow her diminished frame. She kept her eyes down, not looking at the spectators. The proceedings moved quickly. The judge, a stern-faced woman in her 60s, reviewed the plea agreement and asked Amanda if she understood the terms. Amanda's "Yes, Your Honor" was barely audible. The formal charges were read: first-degree murder, child endangerment, attempted insurance fraud. To each, Amanda pleaded guilty in that same quiet voice. Ms. Mitchell presented a summary of the evidence, including Wilson's testimony about the premeditated nature of the crime. She described Noah's ordeal, hiding under the bed for 2 weeks, and I saw several jurors wince in sympathy. Then it was time for impact statements. I had prepared one, and the victim advocate helped me to the podium. I unfolded my paper with trembling hands and began to read. Your Honor, my name is Linda Brown. James Brown was my only child, and Noah Brown is my grandson. 2 months ago, my family was shattered by the actions of Amanda Brown and Marcus Wilson. My son was killed in his own home, and my grandson was left to hide under his bed for 2 weeks. Terrified and alone, I paused, steadying my voice. James was a wonderful father, a devoted son, and a good man. He worked hard to provide for Noah after Amanda abandoned them for her gambling addiction. Even then, he never spoke ill of her to Noah. He wanted his son to think well of his mother. Despite everything, I looked directly at Amanda, who still wouldn't meet my eyes. Now Noah has lost both parents, one to death and one to unconscionable choices. At 8 years old, he's experiencing trauma no child should ever face. He has nightmares. He's afraid to let me out of his sight. He's in therapy 3 times a week. The road to healing will be long and difficult. I took a deep breath. But despite everything, Noah is resilient. He's brave. He's kind. He asked me to tell his mother today that he's okay, that I'm taking care of him. That's the kind of child James raised, one who can still find compassion even after unimaginable trauma. Tears were flowing freely now, but I continued. I asked the court to approve the maximum sentence under this plea agreement. Not out of vengeance, but to ensure that Noah can grow up feeling safe, knowing that the people who hurt his father and abandoned him will not be able to harm him again. I returned to my seat, and Ms. Mitchell gave my shoulder a supportive squeeze. Then it was Amanda's turn. She approached the podium slowly, her hands shaking as she unfolded a small piece of paper. Your Honor, she began, her voice trembling, I know that nothing I say can undo what I've done. I can't bring James back. I can't erase the trauma I've caused Noah. She paused, struggling for composure. I loved James once. He was a good man, a wonderful father. My addiction destroyed that love, destroyed our family. She looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time. Linda, I am so sorry. Not that it matters, but I am truly sorry. James deserved better. Noah deserves better. I've signed away my parental rights because I know that Noah is where he should be, with you. You were more of a mother to him than I ever was. She wiped at her tears with cuffed hands. I accept my punishment. I deserve it, but I want you and Noah to know that I never meant for James to die. It was a terrible accident that spiraled out of control because of my selfishness and fear. She took a shuddering breath. Please tell Noah that I'm sorry, that I love him, even though I don't deserve his love in return, and that his dad was the best man I ever knew. Climax 3, the judge delivered her sentence with solemn authority. Amanda Brown, you have pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of James Brown, child endangerment of Noah Brown, and attempted insurance fraud. The court accepts your plea and the agreed-upon sentence. She looked at Amanda over her glasses, her expression stern. I sentence you to 30 years to life in prison, with no possibility of parole for 30 years. Additionally, your parental rights to Noah Brown are permanently terminated, with full legal guardianship granted to Linda Brown. The gavel came down with finality, and Amanda was led away. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. Outside the courthouse, Officer Roberts approached me. Mrs. Brown, are you all right? I nodded, feeling a strange mixture of grief and relief. It's over. That's what matters. Justice has been served, he agreed. It won't bring James back, but hopefully it provides some closure. Noah is what matters now, I said, my resolve strengthening. Helping him heal, giving him a good life. That's my focus. Officer Roberts smiled warmly. James would be proud of how you're caring for his son, and Noah is lucky to have you. Thank you, I said sincerely, for everything you've done for our family. As I drove home, I reflected on Amanda's words, on the sentence, on the finality of it all. Justice had been served, but it was a cold comfort. Nothing would bring James back. Nothing would erase what Noah had endured. But perhaps now, with Amanda and Wilson behind bars, with the legal proceedings concluded, we could truly begin to heal. Noah and Martha were in the backyard when I arrived home, playing fetch with Rusty. Noah's laughter, a sound I hadn't heard nearly enough since the tragedy, floated through the air, warming my heart. Grandma, he called, running to me as I stepped into the yard. Rusty can catch the ball in the air. Watch. I watched as he threw a tennis ball, which the elderly golden retriever managed to snag mid-flight, prompting more delighted laughter from Noah. Martha approached, smiling. He's had a good day. How was the hearing? It's done, I said simply. 30 years to life. She nodded, understanding. Good. Now you can both move forward. After Martha left, Noah and I sat on the back porch swing, watching birds visit the feeder I'd hung from the maple tree. Did you see Mom? He asked finally. I did, I replied. And I told her what you asked me to tell her. He nodded, seemingly satisfied. What did the judge say? I chose my words carefully. The judge said your mom has to stay in prison for at least 30 years, and that you will stay with me, legally, from now on. Noah leaned against me, his small body warm against my side. 30 years is a long time. Yes, it is, I agreed. I'll be a grown-up by then, he mused. Older than Dad was. The observation, so matter-of-fact from his young lips, squeezed my heart. That's right. Grandma, he asked after a moment of watching a cardinal at the feeder. Can we plant Dad's tree now, the special one you said we could plant for him? I smiled, wrapping my arm around his shoulders. Yes, Noah, I think it's the perfect time to plant your dad's tree. The following Saturday, we planted a young maple sapling in the backyard, in a spot where it would eventually provide shade for the porch swing. Noah helped dig the hole, his small hands working alongside mine in the rich earth. As we patted the soil around the base of the tree, Noah asked, Will it grow as tall as the house? Even taller, I promised. And every year, it will grow a little more, just like you. One day, your children might sit under this tree. He considered this, his expression thoughtful. I'll tell them about Dad, about how brave he was, and how he saved me. That's right, I said, my voice thick with emotion. We'll make sure they know all about your dad. Noah ran his hand along the smooth bark of the sapling. Dad is watching us plant his tree. Isn't he from heaven? I looked up at the clear blue sky, thinking of James, the toddler who had held my hand with complete trust, the teenager who had rolled his eyes at my worrying, the man who had been such a wonderful father to Noah. Yes, sweetheart, I said with certainty. Your dad is watching, and he's very proud of you. Noah smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time in months. I'm proud of him, too. As we walked hand in hand back to the house, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but we had taken the first steps toward healing, toward a new life built on the foundation of love James had left behind. Justice had been served. Amanda would pay for her crimes. But the real victory wasn't in punishment. It was in Noah's resilience, in his slow but steady healing, in his ability to still find joy despite all he had lost. That night, as I tucked Noah into bed, he asked, Grandma, can we visit Dad's grave again tomorrow? I want to tell him about his tree. Of course, I promised, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. We can visit him anytime you want. Noah yawned, his eyes growing heavy. I think he'll like the tree. It's going to be really tall someday. Just like you, I said softly. As Noah drifted off to sleep, I sat beside his bed, watching over him as James no longer could. The stars James and I had painted on the ceiling years ago glowed faintly in the darkness, a connection between past and present, between father and son. Good night, Noah, I whispered. Good night, Jameses. Outside the window, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the newly planted maple sapling, James's tree, a living memorial to a life cut short, but a love that would endure forever. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below. I wonder sometimes about the choices that led us here, about the random cruelty of fate that took James from us but spared Noah. I wonder about Amanda, sitting in her prison cell, and whether she truly understands the magnitude of what she's done. I wonder what James would think of how I'm raising his son, whether he would approve of my decisions. But then I look at Noah, playing in the yard, reading a book, carefully watering his father's tree, and I know that wondering changes nothing. What matters is this moment, this child, this second chance we've been given to build a life from the ashes of tragedy. If there's one thing I've learned from this nightmare, it's that love is stronger than death, stronger than grief, stronger than the worst humanity can inflict. Love is what kept Noah alive under that bed for 2 weeks. Love is what drives me to help him heal, day by difficult day. Love is what connects us to James, even now. And love will be enough. It has to be. I've left 2 of the channel's favorite stories that will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until the end.